I wish we could do something about it. I wish we could just like send ourselves into fucking space and live by space law. You know?
Which we get to create because there is no space law.
Well, yeah, because there's no law in space. You know?
Dude, space is the new Wild Wild West.
Yeah. No, and I'm going up there heavily armed.
Yeah, I'm going up there in a robot spider, a giant
I'm,
robot spider.
I'm shooting every fucking star I see.
Whatever moves, you're
Whatever
blasting.
moves is going down. I am gonna befriend the aliens though.
Yes,
So
hopefully like amoeba type aliens. I don't want to hang out
yeah.
with any grays.
Wow. Okay. Already being like racist
Yeah,
to
gross.
the alien cultures we don't even know yet. Cool.
Yeah, ugh.
No. I mean,
They
I'm
probably
hoping
smell.
it's I'm really hoping it's the like stereotypical green alien with the like big head, kind of skinny body, you know?
Like what, like 3 or 4 feet tall though? Like I don't want them
Yeah, yeah,
taller than me.
three feet tall.
I just want to hang out with amoebas.
I got great news for you, dude.
Those exist here. Uh-oh, you're cutting up.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Okay, it's caught up. It's caught up now.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
it says your internet connection is unstable.
yeah. I don't know if someone just like hopped on YouTube or
Uh,
something.
I mean, Lily's here. Lily's probably watching YouTube, and like, it's just
Uh,
something that happened.
no, your internet's definitely fucking up.
Shit, man. Well, I don't really know what to do about that.
You might have to tell your girl to stop watching YouTube and read a book for the next hour.
I can't fucking. We have nothing to do here but be on the internet.
You got no books?
No, no, Lily doesn't read fucking books.
Oh, come on. Got to read books.
Maybe, I don't know, man.
Well, it looks okay for now. If we keep having trouble, then
All
we'll
right.
just have to pause and then we can keep going.
Okay.
But there are some things that give me respite throughout my day of me being pissed off and fucking angry and frustrated and all that shit. And one of them is the album that we're talking about today. So, what's up, buds, and welcome to a new episode of the Earbuds Podcast, the podcast where two friends talk about one album for many, 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 many minutes. We are your hosts, Ash and Lucas, and today we're talking about Astronoid, prog metal, black gaze, shoe pop, fucking their album, self-titled Astronoid. It is actually their second record. And man, I brought you another Pure Vibes album to analyze and judge.
Yeah, you sure did. Well, because the last one worked out so well, right?
I know, yeah. Well, this one's been on my list because I reviewed this album in 2020 during my albums of the day thing, and it was actually cool. A buddy of mine that I haven't spoken to since then, I was talking to him the other day, and he was like, "Dude, did you ever do that album of the day thing you were talking about?" And I was like, "Oh shit, it's been that long since we talked." Uh,
Damn, dude. Yeah, did that for like a year and a month or so.
yeah, a whole year, and yeah, and it was cool being able to reminisce. And he was like, "Did you actually do it?" I was like, "Dude, yeah." At the end of 2020, I listened to 365 new albums, like new to me,
Fucking
and
crazy, dude.
I'm pretty proud of that. And I did a review for every single one, and Astronoid was one of them. And I don't know how they came recommended to me, either Spotify or someone that was following my albums of the day thing might have recommended them. And man, I loved it a lot when I first heard it back in 2020. And so it's been on my list since we decided to start doing this podcast since day
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
And I thought it's about time. Let's knock it out and
Get her done.
let's get her done. And listening back to it now, I'm like, wow, I did bring out just another Pure Vibes record. And if you don't like the vibe, you don't like the record. And
The
I'm curious to hear what you liked about it first.
what I liked about it. Okay. Well, to give a brief description, it is a like metal gaze record. It
Yeah.
has a lot of like airy kind of guitars. All the vocals throughout the whole thing are very layered, very breathy, very like reverb, kind of delayed.
Yeah.
Um,
Super
with
ethereal, cinematic, theatrical. Um, I describe this band to many people as like Circa Survive meets the Deftones and Coheed and Cambria.
y- I, I, I don't think that would give the right impression,
I
but
think I mean the singer Brett gets a lot of comparisons to Circa Survive, to Anthony Green.
sure.
Which I can hear it, but I just feel like it has that shoegazy vibe that the Deftones have, and then it has that really kind of like melodic, theatrical power metal
Yeah.
vibe that Coheed has. You know?
Yeah, it has a lot of that. It has a lot of metal melodic tendencies throughout the
Yeah,
whole thing. It's got the punchy drums, usually very aggressive, very active. The drums are usually just following the kick
yeah.
of the drummer. Um,
Lots of gratuitous double kick on this album, and I fucking love it.
yes, yes, gratuitous is a fine word for it.
Yeah,
Uh, and that's pretty much the vibe of the whole record. Like sometimes the guitars will get more distorted and kind of have these more chunky parts. There's a good amount of odd time signatures spread throughout the whole thing.
mm,
Um, and that's pretty much the vibe of the record. And the thing I like about that, um, I do love how the kick sounds. I do love how the whole drum set sounds
the
throughout
drummer
this record.
Daniel is sick.
He's got a lot of fucking stamina. Um, I'd say the kick is one of the louder things in the mix of each of these songs.
Yeah,
Um, Along with the vocals, it can be kind of hard to discern what the guitars are actually doing some of the time because they're so like drenched in effects, you know?
yeah. This whole thing is just like the wettest, most reverbed metal album
No, yeah.
ever.
It's a lot of it's like what was that artist that we listened to, Pink Moon,
Oh, Purple
um
Moon, the
Washed Out.
washed out. Yeah,
Yeah, it's very washed out. Um it's just again like you said, cinematic, it's ethereal, it's kind of like galaxy metal, you know, in a way that Astronoid I guess is a great name for it, great name for the album.
yeah. And when you look at these guys, they don't look like they play this type of music. Like they look like they would be in the Front Bottoms or some sort of like Okerville River band or something. Like it is. These guys don't look metal at all. They don't look prog
No,
rock at all.
no.
Um, for me, like this album just feels very somber and sad, but also uplifting. But like for this type of metal,
Sure.
there's something hopeful about the vibe of the music.
I think the Yeah, I think it's hopeful, but it can also be very melancholy, it can be kind of like almost miserable
Yeah.
in cases. I think the lyrics are very kind of abstract in that I can't understand what the fuck he's trying to say
Yeah.
anytime.
There wasn't a lot to parse out from the lyrics in terms of like message or, you know,
But the vibe I got was kind of like tortured, um but like maybe we can get through it anyway. Um
yeah. Yeah, I think it's like this album feels very emotional, but I feel like it's also a word that kept coming to mind when I was listening to it is it sounds very effervescent to me. It sounds,
Effervescent.
yeah, it sounds bubbly and shimmery.
Yeah,
And, like this album feels like champagne. Like it just feels like this one note, one vibe, one feeling, but it's super like glossy and beautiful and the way that it's packaged is really, really nice.
yeah,
And this band on their Wikipedia, they use 6 or 7 different genres to describe their sound. Like
sure.
black gaze, which is black metal mixed with shoegaze, and post metal and progressive pop and progressive rock and pop punk, which I don't really hear a lot of pop punk in it.
No, I don't hear much of that at all.
But to
It
me, it's just a very pretty album. It's really pretty music. It's really theatrical. It's really emotional. And for me, the biggest standout is Brett, his vocals. Like, I think his vocals are super unique for this genre of music and really makes them stand out.
Yeah, yeah. It's the thing again, that layered, reverb drenched vocals that kind of sound almost like a ghost is singing the whole time.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost like creepy, like goth, like kind of gothic horror
A lot
sounding. And
of Yeah, a lot of held out notes. a lot of yeah, I don't know, just like almost ignoring whatever the music is doing.
but a lot of the same too. Like this is another
Yes.
band. If you don't like the singer, you're not gonna like the band because he doesn't do anything different on any
No.
song.
There's no they probably copy and pasted the track with the plugins they used and the effects they used for every single song. It doesn't
Yes.
sound like they changed anything throughout any of these tracks. I think they have a synth player? I feel like I heard a little
Yeah.
like synth throughout this whole
Yeah,
thing.
there's a lot of synth on the album. It's the drummer, so he also does all the synth work on the
Oh,
record. I'm sure
okay.
live they have a different guy doing it. But yeah, Brett's
Yeah.
voice is much more akin to like a Sufjan Stevens or a Sigur Rós than it is to like Metallica or Avenged Sevenfold. Like you hear like,
Yeah.
oh, post metal, and you think something's gonna happen. You hear the music and you think, oh, I know what vocals are gonna follow this. He does not sound like that at all.
No.
And I think a big thing, a big reason why I love this record, I mean, it's heavy, but it's not heavy. And it's metal, but it's not aggressive. And it's, to me, it's just, I think transcendent is a very dramatic word to use, but to me, it is transcendent because it takes me somewhere when I listen to it. You know,
Where does it take you?
it brings me back to the feelings that I would get when I was a teenager. This like
Oh, interesting.
not understanding why I'm sad, but I am sad. And like not understanding why I'm frustrated, but I am frustrated. And I just have
Yeah.
these like it takes me somewhere back to then of being sad and not knowing why pretty much, but then you just want to be happy. So just like the line in I Dream in Lines where he says, I'll be fine for just some time at
Sure.
least. And you're just like, okay, well, I know I'm gonna be fine at least for a little bit. It's kind of like hopeful, but it's not um optimistic. It's kind of like I'll be fine, and you just kind of you give in to the feeling and you're like, well, I'll just live the feeling that I'm feeling and then that's it. And yeah, it really takes me back there. And while that can be, those can be emotions that I don't necessarily want to feel, like, it evokes very specific like memories for me, and those are hard to like have bubble up to the surface and not something I always want to think about or feel, but I do appreciate this album for like taking me there, letting me live in that feeling for, 47 minutes, and then I walk away almost feeling cleansed.
That's interesting because this album came out in 2019, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's not like these albums are listening these feelings because of an association that you
No.
have to like the music, but
I have
like
no nostalgia to Astronoid because their first album I think came out in 2016 or something. I graduated high school in
I don't know.
2005. So there's definitely no nostalgia with this. It is just they're so good at evoking a very specific emotion on this album. And I think in their music in general, all their stuff pretty much sounds the same. And they
Hmm.
just have this way of this sound that just makes me feel like a teenager, like a lovesick, sad, angry, frustrated 14-year-old boy again.
Yeah.
And again, it's a lot of time, like a lot of times thinking back at those times because I was like clinically depressed at that time. And so it's not something I want to think about,
Yeah.
but I can it's something that it's like I ride those emotions. I feel it for the whole length of the album. And then when the album's done, I almost feel like I went to therapy.
You feel kind of like better off, like you're in a better space because of it.
Yeah, I feel like it's helped me work through something that I might not even had known was still there.
Sure.
And it's like every time I hear I Dream in Lines or I think it's like I wish I was there for while the sun set,
Yeah.
and songs like that I'm just like, ooh, man, like these just make me feel really, really strong emotions. And yeah, that's not always a good thing. But I like it.
Yeah.
I
Well,
like this album. I appreciate this album for that.
and you did this for album of the year in
Yeah.
2020. Did
Yeah.
you did you feel those emotions the first time you listened to it, or are those from this new recent kind of like listen? Or
I wanted to find my post about it to see like what did I write about this album like when I first, and I don't, this was during the pandemic. So everyone was very scared
yeah,
and I was
yeah,
very scared.
shit was kind of rough
Yeah, so
for
this
some people.
was giving me a lot of emotions. What those were at the time, I can't remember. I just remember really, really loving it. I think I gave this album like an 8 point something when I listened to it. And
Yeah, and you personally sent me Dreamin' Lines
yes,
just
I sent
because
that song to
you
a lot of people.
just because you felt so strongly about it, and I
Yeah.
thought like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool. Ooh, I got the review right here if you want to hear it.
Yeah, read it out loud. I'm looking on my Instagram, looking for it right now.
This is 298, pretty late on in the year. This was an unexpected surprise. I added this album to my list without previewing it just because I love the band name so much.
Yeah.
Sounds very Lucas.
Yeah.
Turns out this is a killer metalcore album that sounds like if a emo slash screamo band decided to play metal, and I love the result. Super melodic, spacey at times, heavy and catchy. The vocals, while awesome and ethereal at first, get a little old as the album plays out, and
Hmm.
that's the only reason this didn't get a 9, but it did get an 8.9 out of 10.
Yeah.
With
It,
your choice nugs being A New Color, Dreamin' Lines, Wish I Was There While the Sun Set, and Ideal World.
yeah, and that's still the same.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to hear which two you got it down to out of those guys.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah,
Oh,
and I think at the
yeah,
time too, I wasn't listening to a lot of metalcore, and it had been a long time since I listened to anything like this. That I kind of credit 2020 and the album of the day thing for getting me back into metal because I hadn't been listening to it for a long, long time. The whole time we were in Mortalis, I almost didn't want to listen to any of it because I didn't want it to influence my songwriting. I wanted that to come more
sure.
naturally and just whatever I was, whatever we were doing as a group.
Yeah,
But yeah, this album was just one of those. It ended up on like my Noises Choices playlist of just all my favorite songs that I listened to that year.
yeah,
But man, where I love it for its consistency and its like rigid limitation of like, no, we're just gonna do this sound and this is the sound of the album and we're not gonna expand from this. I completely understand why a lot of people wouldn't like that and get really bored of it. And Pitchfork, notoriously, they're fucking curmudgeons, but they gave this album a lot of shit for doing the same thing on every song. Like,
it can kind of, I mean, in the same way that a good vibe album does, it can kind of make you go kind of numb in the head.
yeah, the vibe can overstay its welcome.
And it's there are some changes throughout the record. A lot of it is kind of the same speed. It sounds like it's a lot of the same key. I wouldn't really know something like that. Um,
Yeah,
but it's just like, I don't know, it gets you in this zone and it keeps you there for the whole album. And I personally uh couldn't be there for the whole album. I
yeah,
but to I to go upon the other things I liked about this record, I think I appreciate the more I think I like the hardcore stuff they did whenever they did it. Like the really hardcore stuff, like when they were doing like chugging stuff, when they were doing like genty stuff. Um uh what is that fucking song called? I Wish I Was There While the Sun Set was probably the heaviest song, and we might talk about that later. Um, but just a lot of electric guitar and a lot of like kind of syncopated hits. Uh,
yeah. And like Brett's voice legitimately doesn't change on the whole album. Like he
no,
almost sings like the same melodies in a lot of the songs.
yeah, it could
He has the
be,
same inflection, the na, 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 na. Like he does a lot of these similar kind of runs.
yeah,
They apply, like you said, they apply the same sheen, that same sheen and
yeah,
glitteriness and glossiness that we were talking about. They apply it the same way and the same effect on every single song,
yes,
every instrument. The
yeah.
Pitchfork gave it a 5.2. Um, they said that these songs would do better as 30-second previews rather than full length 4 or 5 minute songs. And I'm just like, harsh.
These are like some of these songs are. It's like 5 minute average throughout the album.
Yeah,
Might be even a little over 5 minutes for like
yeah.
each song, which could be kind of fucking taxing. And another point as to why this thing can kind of blend together, why all these songs can kind
Hmm.
of blend together after a certain point of like, you get through minute 6 of Lost, and you're like, okay, all right, let's kind of like get to the next thing, I guess.
Yeah. And then the next thing is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, and then the next thing's the same thing, and the next thing's the same thing, and Uh,
I think this is one of those albums. If you like it, you're gonna love it, and if you don't like it, you're gonna hate it.
there's more stuff to see. There's like the guitars do interesting things throughout the whole album. There are like different rhythms throughout the whole thing. It's just so easy to kind of lose focus and uh, have everything categorized as like, okay, whatever. It's just a fucking Astronoid song. It's the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. And it's I think I checked out a couple of their songs from Air, the album that came out before this one, and a couple of their songs from Radiant Waves, I think was their
Mm.
newest one. And it is all just the same. It's like this is their sound.
I
And it's not gonna win them any new fans, unless like you just love this sound. And that's it. Like there's not a
I,
lot to grab there. Like for me, for being such a fan of dynamics in music, whether that means simply just like quiet interludes that make way for the heavier parts, or that every song has a different vibe to it on a record, this album has almost no dynamics to speak of, and I still love it.
I don't know. It could just be one of those exceptions that you just fucking vibe with it for whatever reason. I mean, those feelings of adolescence, which can be bittersweet, can be good or bad,
Yeah.
definitely make it more interesting. I didn't really. It does make you feel like you can kind of be bigger than yourself. It almost does sound
Yeah,
inspirational at times.
for sure.
Um,
But with all
but
that said, tell me what you didn't like about it.
with all that said, I mean, aside from everything sounding the same, like I feel like uh, I don't know, the there's really nothing else to say. Like you
Yeah.
either are into that or you're not into that. I think I wish the bass could have done a little more stuff separate from the drums, but like also when aren't the drums playing like 30-second notes on something?
Right.
When aren't they just absolutely kicking both pedals the whole time? I think the guitars are interesting, but the whole same glossy, shimmery like synth as the basis and backdrop of every song just kind of makes it so fucking hard to distinguish one between the other. And a lot of songs were very hard to like grab onto something. There were a couple, obviously, that we'll talk about later that had interesting moments, but songs like I don't know, like Fault or Beyond the Scope or even like Lost can kind of get lost
In
in
the sauce.
fucking in the sauce. Yeah.
Yeah. What's funny is that you named a couple of my honorable mentions. But
Ugh.
yeah, I mean, it's just the I was getting really similar feelings through like the course of listening to this album that I got when we covered Around the Fur by Deftones, where it's like, man, there is just some great shit on here and also some just really boring shit on here.
Well, I say I guess we do our album ratings first.
Yeah, so
Um,
I'll let you rate it first because I know mine's gonna be higher. I want
okay.
to end on a high note.
With everything we said, I don't think I need to overview it. I'm just gonna give it like a 5.6. I
Okay.
think it's fine. It's good. It's an interesting sound. It's a distinctly Astronoid sound. I don't think anyone else sounds like this at all, production wise or like music theory wise.
Mhm.
Um, but it just kind of wears on me. There are some cool moments for sure, but they're few and far between. And it's like I don't know. I don't know what the best experience to have with this album is. Like you're laying in the middle of the floor and you're just kind of like getting lost in your head, and you're letting the music kind of play through your thoughts and shape your feelings. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you're falling more in line with like the pitchfork side of like critics, and pretty much everyone else gave this like a 4 stars or like a 8 or 9 out of 10. Um,
It
and I think
was
it was because it was a breath of fresh air for the scene at the time. This was 5 years ago. Architects was like the biggest metal band at the time, and like Suicide Silence and more of these like deathcore style stuff. And then someone like Astronoid comes in. They're not pretentious at all. They're not holding back. anything. They're just like, this is the sound that we're doing, and we're going to deliver it to you at 100% capacity.
Yeah.
And it was probably a breath of fresh air for a lot of people, and probably for a lot of people, like not heavy enough, not dynamic enough, not interesting enough to keep you, involved for 47 minutes of an album or whatever.
Yeah.
So I get it, and I think it's just like it either connects with you or it doesn't. And
Yeah. And I
but
think the thing
the
that,
least you could say is that it's really well played.
sure, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They lean into it. I did listen to a couple songs off air. I think their production was definitely more like metal focused.
Okay.
And I don't know, it sounds like they really found their sound with this album. And I think the thing that brought it over a five to me was that there are different things happening in the song.
Yeah.
There are different movements, there are different like cool guitar parts, there are different like movements of things happening. But you really gotta like hone in and focus and like I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what the right context of this album would be for most people. Like, so for me, I love listening to this while I'm playing video games. I love listening to it while I'm, cleaning my house. I love listening to it while I'm grilling. It's just like, to me, like, this is a multi-purpose record because it's heavy and it's giving me my metal, like appetizers, but
Yeah.
it's serving it up with this like really beautiful, like we said, ethereal, and the best way I was able to put it was like effervescent champagne vibe that I got from it. And it just like it tickles me. And I love it. Yeah, I just love this record. So it's gonna be, I gave it an 8.9 before. It's gonna be a little bit lower this time because, those were again like my album of the day reviews were one time only kind of
Yeah,
first
yeah.
impression
Right.
stuff. So the first time I listened to it, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then, now going back to it, I can say that there are a few songs on here that don't land as effectively on me as they did the first time. So I'm gonna give it a 7.6.
7.6.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the songs on here because I'm really interested to see which you've chosen. I think I know we've both chosen one, but I want to know what the other is.
Yeah, man. My honorable mentions
Mm,
are Fault. I actually liked
okay.
Fault
Yeah.
a lot. I thought the solo was really awesome, and I thought that was like the most Coheed and Cambria sounding song on
I,
the record.
if I remember correctly, that's the one with those like very like metal opera kind of harmonic, wah, wah,
Yeah.
wah, like kind of
And it
thing
just
on it.
opens up like it opens up into this like power metal, like, yeah, cinematic
Yeah.
vibe. Water was another honorable mention for me. I love how heavy the intro is for
Mm.
Water. One thing I didn't mention, how I love how loud the bass is on this record. It's so fucking loud.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's like so in your face.
No, the guitars oftentimes are like the quietest thing on this record.
Yeah, for sure. I think the guitars that's the shoegaziness, most shoegazy-ist part of this record to me is the guitars. They're just this like droning, hyper distorted guitars that just kind of blend in with each other,
Mm.
and it creates this like wavy effect to me, that is just really nice with like really good headphones on.
Yep.
But and I would say like I liked the intro of Beyond the Scope because it was very like techno synthy 80s sounding, and it's the most different sounding of anything on the record, that those first like 20 seconds.
Sure. Yeah.
And I wish I was there while the sunset was another uh honorable
Well,
for me.
let me interrupt you there and tell you that that's one of my choices.
Yeah, that's a really, really, really good song.
I think it is the hardest song on the record.
Yeah.
I love the patterns that the drummer's doing the whole time with the kind of on the ride bell, the
Yeah. And
um,
it's one of the only songs on the record that they chug. So they're kind of
yeah,
doing a more
yeah,
chuggy feel. It probably, this also isn't like the most interesting album for riffs either. Like you're not going to find really amazing riffs on this record,
yeah,
but on this song, I Wish I Was There While the Sun Set, had the most interesting riffs. And literally just because it was like, mamanu, manu, mamanu, manu, mamanu, manu, mamanu, like that
yeah,
was
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. The fact that it had like a presence and it was doing like some very like solid note stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I loved it. I thought the energy through the verses was probably my favorite thing. I
The
think
the verses felt like their choruses.
yeah, I
Yeah.
honestly like was like, oh, the chorus is fine, but like the verse where they're like just fucking chugging at it and going all in. I thought was the coolest part. I like the like again like harmonic solo, I guess. About 3.5, 4 minutes in there. And yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Holding out those single notes, so
Yeah,
epic.
yeah, yeah. It like extremely like again all these metal tropes, all these metal tendencies
Yeah.
are very present throughout this record.
I think the drummer does a really good job too of playing slightly off kilter. Like you think with the double bass and the snare, you think that the beat is one thing on a lot of these songs, and it ends up being another thing. Like I have a hard time finding the one when I
Sure,
listen to
yeah.
this album.
I think at one moment in this song near the end, he kind of like almost flipped
Yeah.
the vibe of what the song was. You think like you're like hitting on the ones, emphasizing the ones, and then he flips it, and suddenly you're emphasizing the twos and fours or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a big
Uh,
thing is that he emphasizes the one and the three a lot on the snare, and you're just like, oh, it's just off enough to be like, what? What is he doing? Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
great song. One of my first, and by far has always been my favorite song on the record is I Dream in Lines. That's one of my,
that's that's my second one.
yeah. Did you like it when I first sent it to you?
I I
I
think I
don't think you
did
listened
like
to
it.
it. I think it took
No,
you like a year to listen to it.
I don't think it took me that long. I think I took a quick listen and I was like, okay, whatever. And then like a couple months later, I was like, okay, let me actually like try to listen to this thing.
Yeah. Dude, I
Um,
love this song. The chorus like almost makes me cry every time I listen to it. Yeah.
it's so close to me for like almost reaching that level. Like the one tiny like fucking it hardly even worth critiquing or criticizing thing that gets me every time in the chorus is that there's like it's almost kind of hard to follow the momentum. You kind of got to do the work yourself
Yeah.
because it's just the double kick going the whole time, and I almost wish there was just like an accent on the ones and threes or
Yes.
something.
It's like it
Just a
always fucks me up when I listen to it. I'm like, I never get it exactly right. It's like when I stop trying to pay attention to it, that's when I can sing along and not get off beat.
yeah, it's almost like just this kind of like rapid flowing river of
Yeah.
like of sound and using the singer to eventually like figure out okay, what is happening, where are we.
Yeah, I feel like there's like an extra beat on every measure of the chorus or something. It seems like he's hitting the snare 5 times. Like maybe the chorus isn't like 5/4 or something because it sounds like there's something going on there.
Maybe, I don't know.
But also I think I Dream in Lines also has the most interesting verse of any of the songs because of the drummer of him, all that tom work that
Sure.
it just gives this like tribal feel to it, and then it's one of the only songs on the record also that gives you those moments, those movements where it's like the verse is very, very specifically just the verse. The
Yeah.
pre-chorus is very specifically a pre-chorus, and then the chorus is very standout. And like a lot of the other songs on this record, it all blends in. It all just sounds like the same thing for 6 minutes. And this song gives you those moments of just like, okay, we're transitioning to something else. And then
Yeah,
they let us live there for a little bit, and then they take us to the next part, like, and
and it's the
I love
second
that.
song on the record, and it's like fuck.
Yeah. So
I,
yeah, I know, right? Then the whole rest of the record is pretty much 5 minutes of the same shit.
ah, what are you gonna do? I don't know. I like the, I like the part. I think it's after the chorus. It's like, and I fell, and the drummer's kind of riding on the snare a little bit. The guitars are like things are a little calmed down, and
Yeah.
then exploding into that next part. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's the pre-chorus.
I'll
Every time the
be
pre-chorus comes around, it's just
fine.
like, yeah, it's like before I go,
Yeah.
if I
Yeah, yeah, and
follow.
that's like I don't know. That's just an interesting movement.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it's a great transition. Because it's like it makes the chorus hit harder, and that's why it works so well. The chorus is just like you said, an explosion.
Yeah,
Um, my
yeah.
second choice nug is the last track on the album, Ideal World.
Ideal World. I think that was that and A New Color were my honorable mentions.
A New Color, I felt was like didn't feel like an intro song.
No?
If well, it didn't. Yeah, it felt like it doesn't. Well, what I meant was it doesn't. It doesn't sound like a single because it was the second. It was the first single on the record, I think, or the second single. And I'm like, it doesn't sound like a single. It sounds like an intro to an album,
No, yeah, and it is. I think it
and it
does a very
is.
good job at that.
Yeah, it does a great job of being an intro. It doesn't to me. I'm like, this isn't a single. It's
I mean,
just strange.
I guess at some point it's like, how are you supposed to decide? You
Yeah, I
know?
guess
I
I
don't
don't know,
know.
but Ideal World I think is like such a sick song. Ideal World sounds like a Dream in Lines Part 2.
Sure, I could see that.
But that the bridge in Ideal World is my favorite bridge on the record. The drummer is just going crazy.
Is that the
It's like
where
two
is
minutes and
that?
12 seconds.
Two
It's
minutes
like
12
dude,
seconds. Oh, sure,
dude,
yeah.
it's just wild, and it gets so heavy, dude. Then they like drop it down on like the. It must be like a B string. They must be using seven strings or something.
Yeah, certainly.
And the bass is so loud on this part, and I was just like, "Woo!" Anytime that bridge played, I was like, "God damn, that bridge though is just so fucking tasty."
Oh man, yeah, that's good shit.
Good shit, man.
Ugh.
Well,
Well,
I think
I,
that's it.
yeah, I think that's it. I don't know. Astronoid. I bet they're fun to see live. I'd probably sit in the corner and just kind of close my eyes and imagine going on adventures or something.
Yeah, this feels like if you're a stoner and a metalhead, like roll a joint and sit down and listen to this album with good headphones in a
I th-
comfortable chair. It's gonna take you places.
I think if they were a stoner, they were gonna roll a joint in it. But
Yeah, but you like to give a little direction,
sure, yeah,
you know?
yeah. Do you want it to be like how do you roll your joints? Can you teach them, or
I don't roll
like
joints anymore.
you're above that?
I'm
You
above
just do
that.
volcanoes now.
I just do volcanoes.
That's it.
I bought a $700 joint roller basically in a volcano. Kind of makes sense.
No, yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
great.
But thanks for
Thank.
listening, buds. Give us a like, shoot us a comment on YouTube. We're on Instagram at EBPcast. Anywhere that you can find podcasts, we're on there. If you guys want to suggest an album that you want us to listen to, leave it on the YouTube comments. We read them, we respond, whether they're hateful or not. And yeah, man, what are we talking about next week?
Right. So I was looking. Dude, I've been really jamming this album. The thing is, it's like an hour long.
Okay.
I don't know if you would be ready for something like that, but I've been really jamming Hello Nasty by Beastie Boys lately.
Ooh, let's fucking go, dude.
Yeah? You
Yeah.
down?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. If y'all have never heard this album before, pop it on. I think you're gonna be very surprised. Hopefully pleasantly surprised.
Hopefully so. Man, the only one I see on Spotify is like the deluxe edition that's 2 hours long.
No, yeah, it's the same with YouTube Music. It's a fucking pain in the ass. The album's already like an hour long. But now
And
they
then
have this
they
deluxe
a
version with
remix one.
fucking 43 songs on it.
Yeah, I don't and I'm guessing the first one is the actual album's 22 songs?
I got the original track listing right here. It's 22 songs. It ends at
Okay.
instant death.
Okay. So that's just the
Um,
first disc of the special edition.
yeah.
Okay.
And this is I don't know, man. I've been really jamming this one. I've been reappreciating what they do on this one. A lot of people could reasonably forget that the Beastie Boys were a band before they like did License to Ill before they really got leaned into the rapping thing.
Yeah, they were a punk band.
They were a punk band, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't particularly recommend any of their punk shit. It kind of sucked, but in like a cool
Yeah.
punky way.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
really, really DIY garbage, but if you like that type of stuff, they're just as good as any other punk band from the late 80s.
but yeah, I don't know, man. I'm excited for this one. There's a lot of great songs on here. Ones that people might have heard is like "Body Movin'" or "Intergalactic," huge song, three MCs and one DJ. Uh, let's
Yeah,
fucking
there's a
talk about
lot
it,
of
man.
huge ones on this. Yeah, I'm totally down to talk about this.
Let's do it.
Um, I didn't realize it was 22 songs long. I haven't heard this album in forever, dude. This was on constant rotation when it came out for me, though.
Really?
Yeah, I
Oh, dude.
was I was 11 when it came out. Intergalactic like blew my fucking mind at 11
Oh
years
yeah.
old.
It was one of the like three music videos I had on my iPod in
Oh,
like
hell yeah.
2008. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was Intergalactic. It was What You Want, and it was
Yeah.
I think The Pretender by the Foo Fighters.
Oh, okay. Well, shit. Next episode, it'll probably be a chit chat, most likely. But then next album we'll talk about is "Hello Nasty" by Beastie Boys. I'm excited for that.
Hello, Nick.
Hello, Nasty. Well, until then, thanks for listening, buds. Ash, this was good.
Lucas, this was good.
Frickin' bye.
Frickin' bye, y'all.
Frickin' bye.
Adios.